Think about the last big thing that went wrong. A relationship that ended badly, a project that failed, a decision you made that you shouldn't have. Now, honestly, how surprised were you? Because my guess is you weren't that surprised. The signs were there. Looking back, it was obvious. You kinda saw it coming, didn't you? Here's the problem. You didn't. Not before it happened. Your brain rewrote that part. It went back into the memory and quietly added the ending. This is called hindsight bias. And it's not making you feel smarter. It's making you learn less from everything that goes wrong and overestimating everything you think you know about what's going to go right. Here's what makes hindsight bias harder to catch than most. It doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like wisdom. After a startup fails, every investor who passed on it remembers the red flags they noticed. After a marriage ends, every friend who was at the wedding remembers the doubts they had. After a medical diagnosis, doctors who missed it in real time often honestly believe, that the signs were clear all along. None of them are lying. Their brains actually changed the memory. And it works the other way. When something goes right, when the investment pays off, when the strategy works, your brain also rewrites that story. It wasn't luck, it wasn't timing, it was skill, it was judgment. You knew. This is the real cost of hindsight bias. Not that you feel good about yourself after things go right, but that you stop learning from things that go wrong. If it was obvious in hindsight, why study it? Why change anything? You saw it coming, except you didn't. And next time, without even knowing it, you'll make the same mistake and feel just as surprised. The science explains why this is almost impossible to catch while it's happening to you. Let's go back to 1975. A grad student at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, Baruch Fischhoff, was studying something almost nobody had named yet. He took 5 groups of people and gave them the same story, a historical conflict between British and Nepalese forces, same background, same facts. Each group got a different outcome: British victory, Nepalese victory, military stalemate, peace settlement. One group got no outcome at all. Then he asked everyone, what was the probability of each of those 4 outcomes? The groups who were told an outcome believed it was significantly more predictable than the group who was never told. They'd been given the ending, and they couldn't imagine not having seen it coming. Fischhoff called this creeping determinism. Once you know how something turned out, it starts to feel like it had to turn out that way. The past becomes inevitable, and you were always going to see it. Few years earlier, Fischhoff and his colleague Roese Vohs ran what became one of the most referenced studies in the field. They asked people to predict the outcomes of Nixon's upcoming trip to China and the Soviet Union. Real event, real stakes. After the trip, they asked the same people what probabilities they'd assigned. People consistently overestimated how confident they'd been in the outcomes that actually happened. Their memories had been updated by what they now knew. They were certain they'd seen it coming. The original numbers said otherwise. In 2012, Neil Roese and Kathleen Vohs published a sweeping review of hindsight bias research in Perspectives on Psychological Science. 40 years of studies, dozens of domains: medical diagnoses, terrorist attacks, financial markets, legal decisions, sports outcomes. The same finding everywhere. Once we know the outcome, we believe we predicted it. And critically, we judge other people more harshly for not predicting it too. The doctor who missed the diagnosis should have seen the signs. The investor who didn't buy should have read the market. The manager who didn't foresee the problem should have known. We hold people responsible for not knowing things they couldn't have known, because in hindsight, it all seems so obvious. 3 things happening at once. Memory distortion. Your brain updates your past beliefs to match what you now know. Creeping determinism. The outcome starts to feel inevitable, so the path to it feels obvious. Judgment inflation. You hold yourself and others to a standard of foresight nobody actually had. Now, here's how to fight back. 3 fixes. 1 for learning from the past honestly. 1 for judging others fairly. 1 for your next big decision. Fix 1. Write things down before they happen. The only antidote to memory distortion is a record your brain can't rewrite. Before a big decision, write down your actual level of confidence, not after, before. What do you think is going to happen? How sure are you? Then, when you find out, compare. This is what Fischhoff's Nixon study revealed in reverse. People could not accurately recall what they'd believed. The written record is the only thing that tells you what you actually knew versus what you think you knew. At work, before a product launch, a hire, a strategy, write your honest prediction and confidence level. In a month, check it. That's learning. What you're doing without it is storytelling. Fix 2. When something goes wrong, ask, what did I actually know before this happened? Not what seems obvious now. What did you actually have access to at the time? This is the key to judging both yourself and others honestly. The doctor who missed the diagnosis didn't have the scan results. The investor who passed didn't have the numbers that came later. Evaluate decisions based on the information available at the time, not on what you know now. Ask, given what they knew then, was this a reasonable call? Fix 3. When something goes right, ask if it was skill or luck. Roese and Vohs found that hindsight bias is strongest when outcomes flatter us. When we're right, we knew it. When we're wrong, the signs were unclear. That asymmetry is exactly where bad decision-making hides. After a win, ask, what role did luck play here? Not to take away from the win, to make sure you're learning the right lesson, and not just building confidence in a skill you might not actually have. 3 fixes. Write it down before, so memory can't lie. Ask what you actually knew, not what seems obvious now. Check your wins for luck, so you learn the right thing. Hindsight will always feel like wisdom. Your job is to know the difference. Here's what I want you to take from this. You are not as predictable as you feel. The world is not as obvious as hindsight makes it look. And the people who made decisions before the outcome was known were working with less than you think they had. Knowing this doesn't make you pessimistic. It makes you honest about what you actually knew, about what you can actually predict, about what other people actually deserve to be judged by. That's not lowering your standards. That's raising your accuracy. Tell me in the comments, what's something you look back on now and think, I should have seen that coming? But honestly, if you go back far enough, you didn't? Drop it below. Subscribe. Because this series isn't done. More biases, more decisions, more of the things your brain is doing right now while you think you're thinking clearly. I'll see you then.